Welcome, everyone, during our next episode of our BIM for Manufacturer and Wholesaler series. Today we will cover the topic of BIM content in the context of the data pools. If you're not familiar with our webinar series, I definitely recommend you to check our site BIMStreamer.com, where under the event section you will find the recordings from the previous events, from the previous webinars, and also you can register for the next ones, which are going to happen in the future. And for those of you that have already had a chance to visit our site previously, you could definitely check that out again, because we've released our recording from our last episode where we were covering the topic of eTeam and PIM in the context, of course, of the BIM libraries. But let's get back to our today's session. I would like to welcome our first guest, who is the executive board of the eTeam International, master data project manager of the FEST Association working on the EMDG standard. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to welcome a managing director of the Lvi-info data pool from Finland, Mr. Magnus Sirén. Hello, Magnus.
Hello, everybody.
And as usual, I would like to also to introduce the product owner of the BIMStreamer project, who will be responsible for presenting you the practical part of today's knowledge, where we will show how we're actually connecting the data pools together with the BIM libraries. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Adam Końca. Hello, Adam.
Hello, nice to meet you.
And getting back to the agenda of our today's session, at the very beginning, Magnus will put a bit more light on the topic of the data pools. Due to the fact that he is running one of such data pools, I think he is the best person to explain what is the reason of having the data pools, what kind of benefits it brings to the users that are actually using the data, which are shared from the data pools. And in the next part, Adam will present the demo explaining the utilization of the data pools, of course, in the context of the BIM content. And before we start, I would like to, as usually, quote someone. So in this case, I would like to quote the Daniel K. Morgan, which stated that in order to have the data without the information, which states that we can have the data without the information, but we cannot have the information without the data. So I think it's very accurate, especially in terms of the data pools. So Magnus, if you could actually put a bit more light on the data inside the data pools, which later on can be converted into available information. Ladies and gentlemen, Magnus Sirén.
Hello, everybody. Yes, like Adam said, I'm Magnus Sirén, and I'm also like to welcome you to this webinar. I'm presently working as the CEO or managing director for the Finnish National HVAC and Plumbing Data Pool, named Lvi-info in Helsinki, Finland. And even if I'm involved in these organizations like eTeam International and FEST, so I'm in this webinar officially only representing the Lvi-info organization. Well, the topic of the day is BIM content and data pools. And in my presentation, I will focus merely on the latter part, namely the data pools. In fact, more specifically, on the national branch-owned data pools. This meaning that I will give you the answer to the following what, why, and how questions about the national data pools. What are the national data pools? Why do they exist? And how do they work? To do that, I will take you on a small journey into the product data ecosystem and explain some of the challenges and some possible solutions to them. To make this clearer, I will occasionally be using the Lvi-info data pool as an example. So let's start with the what question. So what are the national data pools? A national data pool is built on the database where manufacturers' product data is collected and stored in a structured way. Or like Daniel K. Morgan would have said it, we have the data with the information. From the data pool, we are not, of course, collecting the data just to have it in our database. So the main thing is that when it's collected into the database, it will be available for the whole supply chain on our market. Being national and branch owned enables the data pool to better meet the requirements on the local market, such as language, relevant local features, and also, of course, we know the products the manufacturers are putting in, so we can help them put them in the right place, let's say, for in standards and everything like that. Also, the data pools are intended for serving the local market. They need to have They need to be well connected to international standards and best practices, because the input data originates to a great extent also from international sources. Lots of our customers are, for example, abroad. We have, of course, some big manufacturers in Finland, but we have to be able to take data from different sources. And the input, it's also, for example, EU legislation and other government requirements. They must be monitored and fulfilled. So that is something that we are continuously watching and developing our database to contain the right data.
So Magnus, in that case, if you say that there are national data pools which are adapted to a specific market needs, does that mean that there are different data pools across different countries?
Yes, actually, a good example are the Nordic countries. We have in Finland, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark, and also in the Netherlands, we have good examples of these national databases. Actually, there are different databases for the HVAC and plumbing and electrical, and you can find them in both in all these countries. In the Netherlands, they actually have everything in one big database, also some building materials. So that's a huge one. But in our Nordic countries, we have them differently.
Out of curiosity, why it's split apart into electrical and plumbing?
That's because it has been back in the days. We are talking that before even the data pools, there were some catalogs made in each country. And back in the days, the HVAC and plumbing and electrical was separated very much. Today, they are very close to each other with automation and everything. Sometimes you can't actually decide if a product belongs to the electrical side or the plumbing and HVAC side. But back in the days, and it was usually the wholesalers which were starting up these catalogs, and when time was ready, they started to make some data pool out of it. Actually, it's almost 50 years since the first kind of identification and catalog was made in Finland for these products. So we have a long history. Our organizations go back to then. So, like I said, we have there are also other data pools in Europe, but let's say this clear national branch owned you can easily find in Finland, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark, and the Netherlands. Also, the building sector has their own database developing, but due to the fact that there is not such a strong wholesaler controlled market, it means that there has been nobody actually taking care of it for a long time. It's now when the demand on the market to have good data has arisen, and also through legislation, that's when these databases come very handy in, and that's why the building sector now is doing a good job to catch up and collect this data in their databases.
Magnus, we have first question. Maybe I think this is the best moment to ask it. So
perfect.
The question is whether the Mediterranean countries have a national data pool. pools, at least whether you are aware of that.
I know that for example, in Italy, there are both for electrical and for HVAC and plumbing, and they are also they are kind of separate from the association. They're not association owned, but they have a cooperation with the association. So it's more or less the same like in the Nordics, but they are a little bit more like private entities in this sense. These what I am explaining here are owned by associations, so to say. So we are in a little bit special position in that sense, even if we are registered as limited companies.
I see.
Also, I think in Spain there are something at least on the electrical side.
I know that in Poland there are some data pools available for sure. I think one is represented by the association of the wholesalers somehow, maybe not directly but indirectly. Also related with the IT in Poland. At least that's what the goal is, to have one. And there is also another one which already is on the market.
Yes. And usually one very important thing is why they have to be local. We could of course, maybe the ideal was there is one big common one for the whole world, so to say. Or like somebody at Google once said that, why don't we just, all data is there out in the internet, let's just make some nice tool to extract it and get it from there, search it from there. Well, the problem, one of the biggest problems is that we have noticed in practice is that how can we trust the data? Everybody knows that out on internet, yes, you can find anything there, but what is legit and what is not? So that's why it's better that we have them in data pools, and for the reason that it's much more easy to handle it in a small part, concentrating on your own market. You can have the language things, and so sometimes it's also a little bit different on the products for HVAC in Finland and Sweden and the rest of the Europe. So that's why we need the expertise also. It's easier to split it up. We can, of course, like we already do, we can cooperate, and we are doing a lot, especially in the Nordics, together with our databases. But still, we are running them as separate bases. We also exchange data to some extent.
Oh, really? So let's say that there is some data pools in, let's say, Sweden, and of course LVI in Finland. Since the data might depends on the specific region, that's my assumption at least, how you're exchanging the data which are, let's say, common for all.
I will explain a little bit later on, because we have that's why the kind of the contents on how the databases are built. We build it, of course, on standards, and the more in the beginning, the standards were very local. We had our own things here in Finland, and Sweden had their own, and so on. But today we are starting using something like ETIM and EMGD and other standards, which means they are international, and it's much more easy to exchange data for between the data pools. Well, after covering the what question, I will continue with answering the why question. So why do we need the data pools? We were already a little bit into this, and I'll show an example for the Lvi-info data pool mission. So our mission is to help the manufacturers get the product data into a structured digital format and to distribute it, the information to the whole supply chain. And this is something, it's not specific only for Lvi-info. I just happen to have handy this slide ready, but this is probably common for all my colleagues in the Nordics and Netherlands, and actually all these data pools, to collect it from the manufacturers, and then have it spread out in the supply chain, mainly to the wholesalers. That's the first step, but we also have other connected to the databases, data pool. Back to basics. I'll take one step back and explain a little bit the question that why is the product data so important? Everything is revolving around the data. I would say that product data is the cornerstone of all this. I mean, it doesn't matter if you talk about BIM or other things. It's always the base is always the data. And this picture takes a look from the point of view of the life cycle of a building. So at the left bottom, we start with the planning. And in the planning phase, of course, the engineers need some data in order to choose the right products and systems for to do the work in the building. And then it's easy for him to find this information in an understandable way from our portal. And like I said in the beginning, we collect all the product data from the manufacturers, and we make some kind of validation in order to fit the data into the standards that are available, which means that we have the information in a structured way, then it can be searched. So the planning, the engineers in the planning use the data for making the plans and also give some suggestions of which kind of systems or what kind of products, actually the specifications of the products. Then we come to the building phase of the installation, and at this phase, it's very usual, at least in Finland, that the installer sometimes asks that, hey, we have this kind of product. We want to exchange the one what was in the plan, or if it's only the specification, that they will just check that, hey, is this meeting of fulfilling all the needs of what it needs to do in the building. So there is a lot of traffic between the planner and the builder, the installer, and of course, when they can refer to our database and find the information there, it's easy to know that they identify, that they talk about the right product. When the building has been finished, it doesn't mean that the need for product data stops there. The next step is maintenance. You have lots of systems and let's say pumps and ventilation machinery. You need filters and spare parts. So if you have documented this what has been installed, it's easy to find in our database the spare parts or replacement products if something breaks down. And in that sense, the maintenance systems will in the future be very much connected to our data pool. Today, it's more or less so that those who do the maintenance collect to our website and search for the right product there and the right spare parts. Also, I would emphasize that wholesalers have in our business has a very big part here, because they are very much present in these three first ones: the planning, the building, or more building and maintenance when actual products are moved. So the wholesalers need this data in order to sell the products, and also to serve the building and maintenance companies, so to say, with supply. Later on in the life cycle, of course, the renovation or change, if the purpose of the building changes or there makes some big modifications, that's very important that you find what kind of products there are already installed, if you need more of them, or if you need to replace something, or you need to check if the ventilation machinery, for example, can take all these changes, or you need to update or upgrade or something like that. So there's a lot of data needed from the product data to find the information from the product data to find. Then the last phase, when the building has life cycle is at the end, and it needs to be the demolition. And of course, recycling today, these are very important things, which means that even more than we have today, there will be in the product data also content, let's say data about what kind of materials the products contain, how they should be recycled and everything like that. So this environmental data is something that is increasing all the time, and we are now putting the CO2 content of the products into the database, but there are a lot of more coming in all the time in order to be able to do the recycling and demolition and find the data about that when that time comes. But this kind of explains why the product data is so important, because it's kind of present more or less during the whole life cycle of the building. It's not only in the installation phase, but it's always there in the background when needed.
So Magnus, if you say that we need different set of data on a different, let's say, stage of the evolution of the construction of the investment, actually this is pretty much similar to the next webinar that we are about to present within April, which covers the level of information which are needed on a different stages within the BIM libraries. So when it comes to this information inside the data pools, are they somehow separated? They are tagged somehow? Which set of data are, let's say, more appropriate for particular phases of the construction project, while whether it's more like for planning, building maintenance, and so on, or it's more like everything is together?
Well, you know, a database built very complicated. So you have different lists of and you connect it to each other. So you could more or less say that we have everything in a big bundle. But the thing is that we have everything kind of connected to different standards or different purposes. So we can easily extract the data which is used for a certain purpose. And I will come to that later, but we have one standard for the technical data. We have one for the, let's say, basic information, identification, and so for a product. And it can always be added on. For example, this environmental data will probably have an own system at some point. Today, it's a kind of Wild West there, so we just have to put them into the general basic data standards. But I'm sure that in a few years, we will have some kind of standard of how this data will be used. And then you can find it. So more or less, one of our main duties is to see that we can supply the data in a format that the users in the supply chain can use. So they have a set what they need, and then we will find a way how to supply that. Okay, let's we have handled that how question, and now let's go into the see how the data pools work. The general principle, like I said, we are collecting the data from the manufacturers or suppliers of products into the chain. So that means that all the data that we have is coming from these places. We import it through the interface, and then one of the most important thing is the validation, because like I said, the problem with internet is, of course, all this data can be found on the manufacturer's own web page or in several other places. But how can you be sure that it's a question about just this specific product, and can we validate that it's actually the manufacturer? This is the manufacturer, and this is all the data that's connected to this product is valid. So this is something that is very important, because when the data enters the data pool and is available for the market, then it's very difficult to. Of course, you can correct mistakes, but there's always a risk that bad data goes out before the correction has been uploaded into the system. So that's why we put very much work on this validation. And of course, some of it is done automatically by the system. For example, checking out that the digits in some GTINs and everything is correct and so on. And if a mandatory data is filled in or left empty. But we also have some manual checking to see that everything looks all right. And sometimes we also focus on some special parameters to see that are they, but we cannot do 100% of course of this, but the validation is something that will be a very important part of the work that we do. We are also looking into the possibility here to use AI to help in this validation process. But so far, we have some ideas, but we have not put that in real life yet. And last but not least, through the interface, we are also connected for wholesalers, installers, and other parties who need this data for their business. And one main thing actually with this is that we have today an API both for importing data and to exporting data, which means that in practice we can have more or less a fully automatic flow from the manufacturer's BIM system through the API into our validation. If everything goes through the validation, fine, it goes into the data pool. And then, for example, a wholesaler or installer can download the data through the interface API again. And a good example is, for example, the wholesalers' web shops, which means that with very little manual work, the manufacturer supplier make a change in the BIM system, probably has manually to push a button to send it to our data pool. Everything is okay. It actually goes the next day. It will be available on the wholesaler's web shop and so on. And that means that in order to have a new product and the customer to buy it, all the data will go much more faster without big resources on the market.
Yeah, so maybe we will put a bit more light on the topic, because there was the term that appeared during the Magnus speech, which was PIM. For those of you which might not be aware of what the PIM is, it states from the Product Information Management, and this is a system usually which is on the manufacturer side, where the manufacturer hosts all the product information about their portfolio. Yeah, so it's some sort of a product information database. We have one question from the audience. So, do all manufacturers have an interface?
No, sort of, but not the API. It's still something that maybe today some big companies on the input side with already implemented these product information systems, they usually are built in this interface possibility in the BIM system, which means that it just has to be some mapping done in order to connect to our system. But that is something which is coming more and more, and also for, let's say, small and medium-sized companies, there are reasonable cost BIM systems which have this feature. So I think it will, in the near future, that will be more utilized. But let's say that today, 95% of the input data comes so that the manufacturers log into our portal, and then they can fill in the data. They can send it by, let's say, an XML or Excel file or something like that. That's the most common way how to put in the data today. But we have the possibility, though, to connect servers directly through the API. Let's look a little bit on the data. What kind of input data we have and what it consists of. So the key information here in the middle is called the basic data, and that's where we have the unique identification codes for the product. And yes, I did say codes because the thing is that we can have several and parallel codes for different standards or systems, which are unique only within the scope, in that own scope. The most common ID probably on internationally seems to be the global GTIN number, but GTIN is not due to some old flaws in the baggage from back in the days. It's not always easy to connect it, even if the system is very good, which means that you can have some parallel GTINs for some products from back in the days. Now the rules are very strict how to use it, and it's getting better all the time. But for example, in the Nordic countries, we have on each sector we have our own ID codes nationally, and like I said before, that's something that has been there for 50 years. Actually, there was a celebration last year for that in 50 years this HVAC codes and electrical codes in Finland had been used to identify the products on our market. But of course, today, when you have to have lots of different identification codes, you have, of course, the manufacturer's own product number and identification. You have the GTIN, UNSPC, and other customs, EU customs number and everything. You have a lot of numbers, and they are more or less like attributes. They are just connected to the same product. Well, anyways, this is defined in the basic data, and also who is the manufacturer, and all of these kind of things. And for this, we have chosen the EMGD to be the format or standard for this. I will return to that and tell you a little bit more about the EMGD later on. Then, if we talk about the technical data, which is very important if you talk about the planner and engineering, that has been especially for the HVAC and plumbing and electrical, the E-team is very important because that's a system structuring a model, structuring the data very precisely. And if you connect this E-team data to the basic data, means that you put because you have a set of technical data here, and then you just need the identification and to which product it is connected. You take these both, and you have a very good package already of what is needed in the supply chain. Of course, you have a lot of digital assets with the various formats. I'm talking about pictures, drawings, let's say some kind of certificates or kind of stuff. This is also one big part. These are not, let's say, machine readable, but they are, of course, usually like PDFs or something like that today, or pictures. So something that is connected also to this, let's say, the basics of the product. Then one thing which is very important is also the BIM data, and now I'm talking about being able to form BIM objects, and in that sense we are looking very much on the E-team MC, and but I'll get back to these formats a little bit later on here. Today we don't have the E-team MC data in our database, so but this is something that will come in the future, and we are prepared, so to say, to take that step at some point. So the main thing is the basic data, and to identification and the basic, somebody call it also commercial data for the product, and to connect that to the technical data. I've mentioned EMGD, And that's one common way to structure the basic data. You could use the EMGD, which stands for European Master Data Guideline. This is a quite new thing. This is a guideline who defines the attributes of the basic data so that can be commonly used on all markets. The initiator to build this was the FEST Association, which is the European Federation of the sanitary and heating wholesale trade. But the guideline itself has not really anything to do with HVAC products or something. It's because the basic data is very basic and they can actually fit for, you name it, all branches. But anyways, it was recognized that there was a problem amongst the association's members, that meaning in this case the FEST members, the wholesalers, that they had problems to get structured data from the manufacturers. Everybody had their own Excels and files where how they explain things and all systems, and it was always a lot of work how to find out and to map this and to put it into the databases and the wholesalers. So first eTeam was promoted and introduced, and that solved the technical part very well. But the basic data was more complicated. We had done a small experiment in Finland and taken into use this kind of common structure for the basic data. And based on that experience, I was chosen to be the project manager in FEST for this EMGD project. So the scope was to structure all the basic data used in the whole Europe, more or less, or the markets in Europe. This wouldn't have been possible unless we had this great input from these master data experts in different work groups, and they were representing international manufacturers, wholesalers, and data pools. So we really had a lot of smart people there to put this first version of this together. We actually finalized it in 2021 in beginning of June. A little bit later, we were supposed to have it a little bit earlier, but the COVID made the group work very, very difficult. But anyways, better late than never. It was released, and so like I said, it lists the common basic attributes. It also, which is very important, defines the attributes. That means that you really know what the attribute is. That's usually a problem when you connect it to a data pool, something that have something called product number. But what number is it? The manufacturer's number? Is it some local number? Is it the GTIN or whatever? You always have to have a very clear definition about this. Also, sometimes if there's a limitation of how many digits can be put in somewhere, then it needs to be defined and clearly stated. Also, all the attributes have been given an ID, and that means that because the idea with the EMGD was to make it work for example, APIs to help map communication. That means if you have a number and alphanumeric code or ID for this, it's easy for the IT people to make the connections. And we have it when we have this ID combined with the definition and some explanation about this, then it's quite easy to work with. And this is the experience we had from what we started with the national one in Finland, that it really helped to very quickly connect through the APIs. Now this EMGD is supposed to do the same for the European market. We have a list of the most common basic data attributes, but in each country you have then some specialities and we didn't want it to take it into this basic EMGD. So there are separate files with coming up with this country-specific supplements. That means that, for example, for the French market, you need some special things that is not in the common one. There are 2 or 3 things for the Finnish market. I believe that Swedish market also has some, and Norwegian, they have some more specialities which are defined in this separate attachments. But most of it is in the main document, so to say. Here is a screenshot from how it could look. This is we have in the first column, we have this ID code. It's a MD for master data, and then 6-digit code. It has the same shape as an ETIM class or ETIM codes, so it's easy to handle in the same kind of systems. Then we have a name of the parameter. The format is the string or how many digits. Then there's a definition, and also some example to make it clear. And like you can see, we have something like the supplier name. We can have the supplier GLN or DUNS code depending on the market. Also supplier VAT number, supplier product number, supplier GTIN, country-specific product codes that for example the Finnish LVI codes or something like that. So we have a lot of things defined in this way. And this is just a part of the list, but this is how it starts, so to say.
Yeah, I think, Magnus, that we need to speed up a bit. So
yes,
I know that you will talk about the eTeam. So in general, I'm sending you all the link to the eTeam webinar where we will explain eTeam in more details, both from the eTeam and eTeam MC perspective. Magnus, if you could just make a very quick recap when it comes to the eTeam, because we have something like 20 minutes left.
I will do that because I have think that most of you know eTeam, but if there's somebody not familiar with it, I'll very quickly explain. It's built on product classes, and eTeam covers, like I said, the technical information. So we don't have any identification attributes for the product. That has to come from the basic data which is connected to this. But the product has an eTeam class, and in each class for each product type, there is a set of predefined product features. The features can have numerical values, numerical ranges, logic like yes, no, and choices which are kind of predefined like DN50 or something like for connections. Here's from the eTeam International's like one set for a convector radiator. So you can have you have a list of the features which are relevant for this product, and it's also defined a little bit the same way like in the EMGD. So you can choose from here. The eTeam MC also has these MC classes. It's separated from the basic eTeam system. This is the modeling class. And you also have the features and the same kind of values. But the thing is that these parameters here, they are concentrating on how to make a 3D object out of this product. So it's like measurements and connection types and everything like that. It's also supplemented by a drawing to show where the origo or this 0 point is. So by the help of this data, actually you can create this 3D object and put it into a plan. But you need this picture or drawing to find out what the parameters mean, and also to ensure that you have the 0 point correct. Like the normal eTeam classes, it looks much the same, but then you have this kind of drawing where you find all the parameters, what they really are, and also the 0 point. As a conclusion, why the EMGD? and why the eTeam and eTeam MC is chosen. That's also because they have some they are all on very common on the European market. We don't need it to be defined for each country. We can always refer to these standards. And in eTeam International, there is presently being built a new transfer format, which are based on the EMGD and of course on eTeam. And that is something that really will be useful on the market. So input to the data pools, we use eTeam, eTeam MC, and EMGD. And output, like I said, of course, this the same as the input, but also any format required by the supply chain. We kind of can modify it based on what we have in the data pool to meet the needs of the receiver. But in the future, I see that these product data templates, which are based on the ISO standards, can be a solution. We just need to connect the data on the lowest level to the ISO standards, but that shouldn't be a big problem. Well, Martin,
thank you.
What I had to tell you. So,
and it was quite a lot of very important knowledge. And right now, we would like to utilize the knowledge that Magnus had a pleasure to share us with into a very practical way. And as a result, we decided to, together with Magnus and Adam, prepare you a demo of utilization of the data pools, of course, in the context of the BIM content. So, Adam, if you could explain what we are planning to present during the demo so that our audience could have a bigger picture of the idea.
Sure. Okay, so let's start. Today we are going to present you the built-in circular pump, which is represented by the visible eTeam and eTeam MC codes. And we have chosen two representatives of these products, and we'll show you the products of Grundfos and Vilo. We are going to use the generic template model, which have been created based on eTeam MC specification and this technical drawing. And here you can see the graphical representation of this model. What will be presented? I have already mentioned about the generic template model we are going to use, and Magnus has prepared for us the data in Lvi-info data pool for 3 products. According to Vilo, it will be one family with one product, and Grundfos one family based with 2 product types. As Magnus described earlier, we are going to take the basic data, the EMDG, in EMDG classification, technical data in eTeam format, and prepared specially for these 3 products, eTeam MC attributes that will set the geometry for the generic template model. The purpose of the presentation is to show how to inject those data pool data into generic template model automatically. And we are going to achieve this goal with the BIMStreamer platform. The back office will take the generic template model and the data from the LVI as a data source. And as the BIMStreamer is integrated with external services, we can provide for the user also some additional attributes validation. In our example, we are going to validate the data through the EMDG, eTeam, and eTeam MC. What is validated is the existence of the attributes and the correctness of them. According to the correctness, we are checking the stuff like codes, descriptions, values, units, or formats if are valid. Later on, the platform is collecting the data for each product and prepare the group of data and set it to Revit. And through the Revit API, the data are injected into this generic template model. When the new files are created, they are ready for the verification and acceptation. The user the authorized user can verify them and accept. And after acceptance, the new version of BIM file is created in the platform. However, the previous versions are still available for the inspection in case they are needed. In our example, we have prepared the data for Finland channel in 2 languages, Finnish and English. And we are going to publish those data to web applications of the Vilo and Grundfos websites.
Of course, these are only demo websites.
Of course, they are on demo websites. And but this is just an example. The other channels where the data can be published are mobile applications, Revit plugins, or any other external BIM platforms that manufacturers or wholesaler would like to publish this data.
Yeah, it could also be a data pool, right, Magnus?
Yes, of course.
Exactly. And on these websites, you will be able to see the changed geometry of these products and the injected EMDG and ETIM attributes. Later on, we are going to show the created files in Revit. So in Revit, you will be able to see the updated geometry and injected attributes. What is worth to say here is also that we have created a single file for Grundfos, which contain 2 types of products in single file. It means that user can switch between the products in the Revit according to single Revit family. This is the one option of the synchronization. The second one is that user can select a different option and synchronize single Revit file for single type. However, the first option is the most common for manufacturer, as it's better to present all family types in single Revit family. And in the end, we are going to present you a bill of material, which will be created based on the products injected into the Revit project. And the table will contain also some configured additional information taken from data pool, like ETIM and EMDG attributes. Let's play the movie.
Okay, Magnus, so the stage is yours. Lvi-info.
Okay, so here in the beginning, we are logged in as a manufacturer in our system. And the manufacturer has put in the data. Of course, now we can choose. We can use the supplier or group or class of our products. This is our whole hierarchy. But I will do it this a little bit more when we have 2 manufacturers' products. I'll just put in the identification number of these products, and then I choose the products. And I found the 2 Grundfos pumps and 1 Vilo. And then we can see what kind of information we have for this. In here we have first, this is of course in Finnish now we have in our system, but we have the basic information. We have the ETIM information, all the ETIM attributes for these pumps. And last but not least, there will be also the MC information, what means that this is the parameters for. And bottom, we have all the digital assets here, you can say. So this is how it looks in our system. Now what we do, we told you that we will export this through the API to the BIMStreamer. So we just go to the export API and click that button, which means that then we just choose the who we're sending it to. And next, Adam will tell us how this works from there on. So that was the export from our database.
So let's check now what will happen on the other side. As I said before, we are going to validate the taken data through the EMDG, ETEM-IMC, and ETIM8 classifications. And in the table, you can see that some data are correct, invalid, or missing. Of course, the validation is optional and only for user information, so it's not blocking the synchronization and data injection. The invalid attributes can be caused, for example, because manufacturer decided to choose different translation for some ETIM values. In this case, we have EMDG validation, where you can see the data from table of which Magnus already presented, and here was the ETIM-MC information about the attributes which are available and which are missing. Now we are going to synchronize the products for Finland channels for those two families. Grundfos is already finished. Now Vilo is in progress. And in a moment, you will see the comparison of those three products. And you can see that the geometry is different. And that's because we have provided a different ETIM-MC data from data pool, which updates the geometry. In a moment, we are going to publish those data to web applications. Here are the web pages, and you can see the product representation on the web applications. And of course, the high resolution images, which you can see on the web application, are taken also from data pool. As Magnus said, we can provide different assets. At the moment, we have opened the Revit file. You can see this is the master model. As you can see, it contains only the geometry and no additional attributes. Now we are adding to the project the created products with injected data. You can see also the different geometry. And now the attributes, we can see that there is a lot of ETIM and EMDG attributes that have been injected in all of these three product types, different attributes. And in a moment, you will be able to see the generated bill of material table in Revit, which will contain information about the number of elements. It's column D, count. And from E, you can see that there is ETIM class and EMDG attributes that have been configured that should be visible in the bill of material table. Thank you for watching.
Okay, so Adam, maybe I will ask one question. So we show three different geometries, right? So does that mean that we generated the very same different products from the very same master file? Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. That's why ETIM-MC and generic template models are so cool, because from single Revit master file, we can generate Revit families for different manufacturers and different products.
And what about the validation? Because we show that we only validated against ETIM or against EMDG and ETIM-MC. Is it possible to validate also against other validation rules?
Of course, so we can validate according to every service we will integrate with. So if someone provides us information about the classification, we can validate the provided data through the information from these services.
Okay, guys, thank you. It was really fast demo. We're already behind the schedule, so I will just introduce you to the next webinar that we're planning to host, which will take place in the beginning of April. It's right now it's set to 6th of April, but most likely it will be postponed because on the 6th there is a BIM World in Paris where we are planning to participate in. So probably the webinar will take place the week after. Nevertheless, you can already sign and we will notify you in case of any date changes, and we will cover the topic of different level of information that needs to be provided into the BIM libraries depending on different needs, depending on different market needs, depending on the different needs of the stage of the project. But I won't tell you a bit more in details about it because I definitely recommend you to sign to the next webinar to check that out on your own. And we still have some questions that we will try to answer. We're already behind the schedule, so maybe let's limit it to maximum 5 minutes. So maybe first question, what format can the manufacturer use to upload the data? I'm guessing that this refers to the Lvi-info. Excel, XML, BME, CAD, and whether the EMDG and BMDG are the same.
Okay, there was we can take in we have actually an Excel format which is our own, which we can be used, can be downloaded from us and be filled in, and then you can import that Excel. That is based on the EMGD. So mainly the EMGD way of importing is okay. We can also import the BME cut, but we only read the eTeam information from there. So we cannot take the basic data from there. That's we have noticed that that's too complicated. We always need to manually check every parameter that they are good. So only for eTeam data, the BME cut is possible. And of course, there is a interface where you can manually copy paste data, of course, but that's a little bit more tricky. If you only have a couple of products, it's maybe good, but if you have a bigger range of products, then of course the Excel is probably the best. And third one is the API, but then you need to of course to map that one towards our API. Using the EMGD parameters and the eTeam system to connect, then it's possible to import the data that way. The one question was the EMGD and the BMGD are not really the same. They have the same base, but the EMGD is a little bit more developed and structured.
So I think that would be the last question. Is there already a draft for the new eTeam data format? I'm guessing that the question refers to eTeam 9, but I'm only guessing.
This transfer format is separate from the eTeam 9 and the eTeam model in that way. It's like eTeam has for a long time maintained a description or a guideline for the BME cut. Because the BME cut itself has not been maintained since 2005, but eTeam has kept it alive for a transfer format. But now the step over to this new one is going to happen, and during this year it is supposed to be released. The new one. There's not a preview yet, but it's only thing we know is that it's based on the eTeam model and EMGD.
All right, guys, thank you very much for the presentation. Magnus, thank you very much for your intel. Adam, thank you very much for the demo preparation. From this place, I would also like to thank the FEST, eTeam Poland and SPUC to help us to promote the event and to collect all of you, because probably you've received this invitation from either of these three organizations. I would also like to thank you, our speakers, so both Magnus and Adam. Thank you very much for your knowledge, for your involvement into the demo. And in case someone would like to get the slide deck from today's presentation, I definitely recommend you to take a screenshot of this slide, and write me an email. And for those of you that are interested in it, I will send it over an email. Thank you very much. I once again invite you for the next episode of our webinar series that covers the BIM content related topics. On the next one, we will cover the topic of the level of information needed inside the BIM libraries. At the very top of the screen, you can just hit the button to get redirected to the site. And from this place, I would like to thank you for the participation.
Thank you.
Bye.